Okay. Excuse me. What did I just read? This is my second video. I'm reading the 12th part of The Color of Magic. They were high enough now to see the wide curve of the rim sweeping away from them, lapped by the fluffy clouds that mercifully hid the waterfall for most of the time. From up here, the sea, a deep blue dappled with cloud shadows, looked almost inviting. Rincewind shuddered. "Excuse me," he said. The hooded figure turned from its contemplation of the distant haze and raised its wand threateningly. "I don't want to use this," it said. "You don't?" said Rincewind. "What is it, anyway?" said Two Flower. A Honduras wand of utter negativity," said Rincewind, and I I wish you'd stop waving it about. It might go off," he added, nodding at the wand's glittering point. "I mean, it's all very flattering, all this magic being used just for our benefit, and there's no need to go quite that far. And shut up!" The figure reached up and pulled back its hood, revealing itself to be a most unusually tinted young woman. Her skin was black, not the dark brown of Urabewe or the polished blue-black of the monsoon-hunted Clatch, but the deep black of midnight at the bottom of a cave. Her hair and eyebrows were the same color of moonlight. There was the same pale sheen around her lips. She looked about 15 and very frightened. Rincewind couldn't help noticing that the hand holding the wand was shaking. This was because a piece of sudden death, wobbling uncertainly a mere 5 feet from your nose, is very hard to miss. It dawned on him, very slowly because it was a completely new sensation, that someone in the world was frightened of him. The complete reverse was so often the case that he had come to think of it as a kind of natural law. "Oh, shit!" "What is her name?" he said, as reassuringly as he could manage. She might be frightened, but she did have the wand. If I had a wand like that, he thought I wouldn't be frightened of anything. So what in creation could she imagine I could do? "My name is immaterial," she said. "That's a pretty name," said Rincewind. "Oh, thank God, he made a dad joke." "Where are you taking us, and why? I can't see any harm in you telling us." "You were being brought to Kroll," said the girl. "And don't mock me, Hublander, else I'll use the wand. I must bring you in alive, but no one said anything about bringing you in whole. My name is Marchesa, and I'm a wizard of the 5th level. Do you understand?" "Well, since you know all about me, then you know that I've never even made it to Neophyte," said Rincewind. "I'm not even a wizard, really." He caught Two Flower's astonished expression and added hastily, "Just a wizard of sorts." "You can't do magic because one of the 8 great spells is indelibly lodged in your mind," said Marchesa, shifting her balance gracefully as the great lens described a wide arc over the sea. "That's why you were thrown out of Unseen University. We know." "But you said just now that he was a magician." "Of great cunning and artifice," protested Two Flower. "Yes, because anyone who survives all that he has survived, most of which was brought on himself by his tendency to think of himself as a wizard, well, he must be some kind of a magician," said Marchesa. "I warn you, Rincewind, if you give me the merest suspicion that you are intoning the great spell, I really will kill you." She scowled at him nervously. "Seems to me your best course would be to just, drop us off somewhere," said Rincewind. "I mean, thanks for rescuing us and everything, so if you just let us get on with leading our lives, I'm sure we'd all—" "I hope you're not proposing to enslave us," said Two Flower. Marchesa looked genuinely shocked. "Certainly not. Whatever could have given you that idea? Your lives in Kroll will be rich, full, and comfortable." "Oh, good," said Rincewind. Just not very long." "Oh, my God. Because there are many sacrifices. It's too much." Kroll turned out to be a large island, quite mountainous and heavily wooded, with pleasant white buildings visible here and there among the trees. The land sloped gradually up toward the rim, so that the highest point in Kroll, in fact, slightly overhung the edge. Here the Krullians had built their major city, also called Kroll, and since so much of their building material had been salvaged from the circumference, the houses in Kroll had a decidedly nautical persuasion. To put it bluntly, entire ships had been mortised artfully together and converted into buildings. Triremes, dhows, and caravels protruded at strange angles from the general wooden chaos. Painted figureheads and hublandish dragon prows reminded the citizens of Kroll that their good fortune stemmed from the sea. Barkentines and carracks lent a distinctive shape to the larger buildings. And so the city rose tier on tier between the blue-green ocean of the disk and the soft cloud sea of the edge, the 8 colors of the rainbow, reflected in every window and in the many telescope lenses of the city's multitude of astronomers. "It's absolutely awful," said Rincewind gloomily. "I don't know, that sounds pretty awesome." The lens was approaching now along the very lip of the rimfall. Actually, now my brain can't. Now I can't think of the name of it. The second Boslog book by China Mieville, the boat city thing. It kind of reminds me of that. Anyway, The island not only got higher as it neared the edge, it got narrower too, so that the lens was able to remain over water until it was very near the city. The parapet along the edgewise cliff was dotted with gantries projecting into nothingness. The lens glided smoothly toward one of them and docked with it as smoothly as a boat might glide up to a quay. 4 guards with the same moonlight hair and night-black faces as Marchesa were waiting. They did not appear to be armed, but as Two-Flower and Rincewind stumbled onto the parapet, they were each grabbed by the arms and held quite firmly enough for any thought of escape to be instantly dismissed. The Marchesa and the watching hydrophobic wizards were quickly left behind, and the guards with their prisoners set off briskly along a lane that wound between the ship houses. Soon it led downward, into what turned out to be a palace of some sort, half hewn out of the rock of the cliff itself. Rincewind was vaguely aware of brightly lit tunnels and courtyards open to the distant sky. A few elderly men, their robes covered in mysterious occult symbols, stood aside and watched with interest as the sextet passed. Several times Rincewind noticed hydrophobes, their ingrained expressions of self-revulsion at their own body their own body fluids was distinctive, and here and there trudging men who could only be slaves. Hydrophobes have to hate their own body, because they're made of oh my god. He didn't have much time to reflect on all this before a door was opened ahead of them, and they were pushed, gently but firmly, into a room. Then the door slammed behind them. Rincewind and Two-Flower regained their balance and stared around the room in which they now found themselves. Gosh, said Two-Flower ineffectually, after a pause during which he tried unsuccessfully to find a better word. This is a prison cell? Wondered Rincewind aloud. All that gold and silk stuff, Two-Flower added. I've never seen anything like it. In the center of the richly decorated room, on a carpet that was so deep and furry that Rincewind trod on it gingerly lest it be some kind of shaggy, floor-loving beast, was a long, gleaming table laden with food. Most were fish dishes, including the biggest and most ornately prepared lobster Rincewind had ever seen, but there was also plenty of bowls and platters piled with strange creations that he had never seen before. He reached out cautiously and picked up some sort of purple fruit crusted with green crystals. Candied sea urchin, said a cracked, cheerful voice behind him. A great delicacy. He dropped it quickly and turned around. An old man had stepped out from behind the heavy curtains. He was tall, thin, and looked almost benign compared to some of the faces Rincewind had seen recently. The puree of sea cucumbers is very good, too, he said the face, conversationally. Those little green bits are baby starfish. Thank you for telling me, said Rincewind weakly. Actually, they're rather good, said Two-Flower, his mouth full. Oh, bless you, Two-Flower, because you're doing the right thing, which is to eat free food. I thought you liked seafood. Yes, I thought I did, said Rincewind. What's this wine? Crushed octopus eyeballs? Sea grape, said the old man. Great, said Rincewind and swallowed a glassful. Not bad. A bit salty, maybe. Sea grape is a kind of small jellyfish, explained the stranger. Now I really think I should introduce myself. Why is your friend gone that strange color? Culture shock, I imagine, said Two-Flower. What did you say your name was? I didn't. I'm Garhartra. I'm the guest master, you see. It is my pleasant task to make sure that your stay here is as delightful as possible. He bowed. If there's anything you want, you have only to say. Two-Flower sat down on an ornate mother-of-pearl chair with a glass of oily wine in one hand and a crystallized squid in the other. He frowned. I think I've missed something along the way, he said. First, we were told that we were going to be slaves. A base canard, interrupted Garhartra. What's a canard? Said Two-Flower. I think it's a kind of a duck, said Rincewind from the far end of the long table. Are these biscuits made of something really nauseating, do you suppose? And then we were rescued at great magical expense. They're made of pressed seaweed, snapped the guest master. But then we're threatened, also at a vast expenditure of magic. Yes, I thought it would be something like seaweed, agreed Rincewind. They certainly taste like seaweed. Would taste if anyone was masochistic enough to eat seaweed. Hey, seaweed is delicious. I love seaweed. And then we are manhandled by guards and thrown in here. Push gently, corrected Garhartra, which turned out to be this amazingly rich room, and there's all this food and a man saying he's devoting his life to making us happy, Two-Flower concluded. What I'm getting at is this sort of lack of consistency. All right, said Rincewind. What he means is, are you about to start being generally unpleasant again? Is this just a break for lunch? Garhartra held up his hands reassuringly. Please, please, he protested. It was just necessary to get you here as soon as possible. We certainly do not want to enslave you. Please be reassured on that score. Well, fine, said Rincewind. Yes, you will, in fact, be sacrificed, Garhartra continued placidly. Sacrificed? You're going to kill us? Shouted the wizard. Kill? Yes, of course, certainly. It would hardly be a sacrifice if we didn't, would it? But don't worry, it'll be comparatively painless. Comparatively? Compared to what? Said Rincewind. He picked up a tall green bottle that was full of sea grape jellyfish wine and hurled it hard at the guest master, who flung up a hand as if to protect himself. There was a crackle of octarine flame from his fingers. Oh boy, and the air suddenly took on the thick, greasy feel that indicated a powerful magical discharge. The flung bottle slowed, and then stopped in midair, rotating gently. At the same time, an invisible force picked Rincewind up and hurled him down the length of the room, pitting him awkwardly halfway up the far wall, with no breath left in his body. He hung there with his mouth open in rage and astonishment. Gahartra lowered his hand and brushed it slowly on his robe. I didn't enjoy doing that, you know, he said. I could tell, muttered Rincewind. But what do you want to sacrifice us for? Asked Two-Flower. You hardly know us. That's rather the point, isn't it? It's not very good manners to sacrifice a friend. That's actually true, but it's so disturbing. Besides, you were, specified. I don't know a lot about the god in question, but he was quite clear on that point. Look, I must be running along now. So much to organize. You know how it is. Do they know how it is? The Gasmaster opened the door and then peered back around it. Please make yourselves comfortable, and don't worry. But you haven't actually told us anything, wailed Two-Flower. It's not really worth it, is it? What with you being sacrificed in the morning, said Garhartra. It's hardly worth the bother of knowing, really. Sleep well, comparatively well, anyway. He shut the door. A brief octarine flicker of balefire around it suggested that it had now been sealed beyond the skills of any earthly locksmith. Oh my god! Gling, clang, tang went the bells along the circumference in the moonlit, rimfall roaring night. Turton, lengthman of the 45th length, hadn't heard such a clashing since the night a giant kraken had been swept into the fence 5 years ago. He leaned out of his hut, which for the lack of any convenient eye out on this length had been built on wooden piles driven into the seabed, and stared into the darkness. Once or twice he thought he could see movement far off. Strictly speaking, he should row out to see what was causing the din, but here in the clammy darkness it didn't seem like an astoundingly good idea. So he slammed the door, wrapped some sacking around the madly jangling bells, and tried to get back to sleep. That didn't work, because even the top strand of the fence was thrumming now, as if something big and heavy was bouncing on it. After staring at the ceiling for a few minutes and trying hard not to think of great long tentacles and pawn-sized eyes, Turton blew out the lantern and opened the door a crack. Something was coming along the fence, in giant loping bounds that covered meters at a time. It looked up at him, and for a moment Turton saw something rectangular, multi-legged. Oh, Lord. Shaggy was seaweed, and although it had absolutely no features from which he could have deduced, it was also very angry indeed. The hut was smashed to fragments as the monster charged through it, although Turton survived by clinging to the circumfence. Some weeks later, he was picked up by a returning salvage fleet, subsequently escaped from Krull on a hijacked lens, having developed hydrophobia to an astonishing degree, and after a number of adventures eventually found his way to the Great Neff, an area of the disk so dry that it actually has negative rainfall, which he nevertheless considered uncomfortably damp. The luggage never fails, just never fails. Oh my god. What is this book? It just continually surprises me. Holy shit.